Hello and welcome to another edition of For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. My guest today is Russ Partridge. He's a returning guest to the show. Russ is the executive director for the Warm Homeless Shelter in Westerly, but really serves all of Rhode Island. We'll once again meet him and learn about the shelter when we come back, so stay with us. Welcome back to For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. My guest today is Russ Partridge. He's a regular on the show, executive director for Warm Homeless Shelter. First of all, welcome back to the show.
Thanks so much, Sean.
Now, WARM obviously is an acronym for something. What's it stand for?
It is. It's originally was called the Westerly Area Rest Meals. WARM has been around for about 25 years, and when it began, it was what was then considered a night-to-night shelter, and it was operated by 7 churches in the Westerly and Pawcatuck area. And when this problem of homelessness didn't go away, the folks who were running the organization then really found it necessary to find a permanent place where people would be able to come to have a safe place to be and to begin. And that's where we ended up on Spruce Street. We're currently located at 56 Spruce Street, and we are a homeless shelter, but we're much more than that. We're really a comprehensive social service agency serving Westerly and the southeastern Connecticut area. We run a shelter which has 19 beds, 13 men and 6 women. We run a community soup kitchen which operates 7 days a week. We do lunch and dinner for the residents in the shelter, but also for the community. Do an average of 100 meals a day.
Wow.
Out of a very, very small kitchen.
You know, it's amazing. You wouldn't think, especially when it started, that the Westerly Pawcatuck area would have a homeless problem. You would think it would be more prevalent in larger cities with bigger populations.
You're right. One of the things, having worked in up, as they say in Westerly, up north in Rhode Island, right, for most of my career.
Bigger cities.
The bigger city. Until I came to Westerly, didn't realize the seriousness of the poverty in specific areas in the Westerly area. Most people in Rhode Island think Watch Hill, Misquamicut.
How could there possibly be any homeless problems or poverty in general there?
Right. Those are beautiful areas,
yeah,
but as you get into some of the other areas of Westerly, you really begin to realize that people are struggling.
Yeah.
They're struggling to make their rent, they're struggling to make their budgets and food, and so poverty and homelessness really is a serious issue.
Now, is it magnified because of the state of the economy that we are in these days? Now, you were here maybe a couple of years ago, and it was probably more so severe then. At this point now, are you seeing a light at the end of the tunnel?
Well,
from your point of view and what you do?
Unfortunately, I have to say no, we're not. It's easier to get folks employed, but the employment that they're getting is at lower wages, which makes it very difficult to afford an apartment.
Yeah.
The economy, we're seeing more people coming through who really have experienced difficulty in the economy, and they're first-time homeless. This is the first time they've come to a social service agency. We're beginning to see what I have waited for, in a sense, for the second wave. People who were hanging on, who were able to make their rent and their utilities, but now have gotten their hours cut or have lost their jobs completely.
And you know what, it's really tough about that second wave, because they were hanging on and maybe this is their first time utilizing or needing your services, and is pride for a lot of people. Talk about that a little bit.
It's really tough.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, people wait till the very last minute. There are many resources available to folks, but it's really hard to say, I need help. And so they wait till the last minute, and sometimes being able to help them through the hump or over the hump, that time has passed. So they end up having to come in and looking for food and looking for other types of assistance.
You know, if they had come in earlier, maybe they might not have needed all of your services. I mean, that's possible. Right?
That is very possible. There are many programs available throughout Rhode Island and other states that can help to prevent homelessness. And we have a great network of social service agencies in the Westerly area called the Basic Needs Network. Whereas if WARM doesn't have it, we know who does. We know how to refer people and where to refer people for the services and assistance that they need.
Yeah, and it's what you talked about in the beginning. WARM is so much more than a homeless shelter. Sure, if you need that, that's available to you.
Yeah.
But if you don't need that, but if you are in some sort of dire straits in some other area, like your employment, maybe you need to, there's so many services. You need to improve your resume, improve your skills, take some kind of a workshop. All these things are, like you said, WARM, if they know where to refer you to get that.
Exactly. We have a case manager, and that position is called the community critical needs case manager. And what she is able to do is she really has the hotline to resources that are available, such as resume writing and computer classes, GED classes, or financial resources that may be available to help somebody with their utility bill or their rent. Often what we see is what I call the snowball effect. Somebody is not able to make their utility payment, so they borrow from their rent money to pay the utility, and then
domino knocks the other one over.
One domino knocks the other one over, and it makes it very difficult to recover.
I think one of the, and I was talking about this with someone on another show we did recently, one of the things that has to give a little bit is employers seem very skittish to, they want to hire, but they're waiting to see somebody else do something, waiting for the economy to improve, not realizing that their offering of a job helps to improve the economy. They're waiting, and that is like the first domino that needs to fall over so that some of your other social services can get utilized, and maybe someone may not need to call upon you.
Exactly. I mean, I know that everybody's having a tough time, certainly businesses, and in the Westerly area we have a lot of small businesses, and I think that you're right. I think that they are waiting to see where we go with the economy, and our things, every once in a while I feel like we're getting this jump start,
but it's like 2 steps forward and then maybe a step
back.
Yeah.
But I do think that we are making progress, and it is small, but I do feel as though it's happening.
Now, as we tape the show, summer's over, we are going into the fall now. Will you see an increase in people frequenting your facilities?
I would say yes, in the numbers of families that are starting to look for.
That's another very concerning.
It's very concerning. I'm actually going to a meeting tomorrow on the state level to talk about what's happening with families, homeless families. One of the things that happens at this time of the year, families have been doing what unfortunately I call the campground shuffle, which is they'll stay at a campground or they'll stay at friends.
It was warm, so you could get away with
so you could get away with that.
Yeah.
But or staying on families' couches or something along those lines. But now they want to get their kids registered for school, and they want the children to be stabilized. So we have seen a very serious uptick in the numbers of families looking for shelter.
One thing I've noticed about some shelters is they're not usually co-ed, but yours is.
Ours
is that a
is.
conscious choice to do that?
Yes, it really is, because particularly in where we are, it's very difficult for women to find adequate, safe shelter. Yeah. And to be honest with you, I think it works really well. I think that it gives people an opportunity to really learn and how to commingle, how to get along with others, and how to work out differences that they have.
Because outside in the world, all those things you just mentioned, people do every day, and if you as close to reality as you can get.
Yeah. There was, I think, initially some concern about that.
Fraternizing.
Right. Yeah. But we have very strong, strict rules at the shelter and guidelines that people must follow in order to stay. And folks are told that in the very beginning, that developing a relationship with someone, an interpersonal relationship with someone else in the shelter, is not allowed. What folks do as they graduate or leave the shelter, certainly, we want them to have a healthy life. life.
Right.
But that would can cause a great deal of friction within the shelter.
So when somebody does finally is able to leave and move on and get on with their life and improve their life, obviously that's a feel-good story for you.
Absolutely.
Do they ever come back and talk about it? Do they ever come back and help out in some
They do.
way? That's a great story.
All the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
It is one of the things that I love to see is that folks who have completed our program and have moved out and on their own, they come back and they volunteer. They come back and they, in some ways, mentor other folks who are in the shelter. So it not only says that, to me, it not only says that what we're doing right, but it also says that people want to give back. You know, homelessness is not what most people think.
Right.
And that the homeless people are not, they're like you and I, and
Yep.
they're brothers and sisters and
Especially
neighbors.
in this economy, you
Right.
know, it becomes regular people, you know, that you wouldn't think would even need to utilize your services.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So to see that when they come into the shelter and begin to have a stable, healthy life and they move out, they've continued that. And part of, you know, living in a society like this is learning how to give back. And so they come back often.
Now, when you say completed your program, is there a sort of a finite time that they can stay in the facilities?
There isn't, and one of the reasons for that is, you know, as we've walked through this program, you know, the last thing we want to do is have somebody come in and stabilize their lives, and then
have it disrupted again.
And then have
Yeah.
them disrupted again.
Yeah.
It doesn't really make a lot of sense. So people are able to stay until they're ready to go, but in that, I will tell you, the average length of stay can be 45 to 60 days. So we're really talking 2 months.
Right. Does that mean that they've actively been looking for work maybe and actually found it or found a place to stay?
Absolutely. Part of the program at WARM is once you get stabilized, which we think takes about 4 or 5 days to get into the system, to get into the routine of the shelter. If you're eligible and able to work, you have to be out looking for work.
Right.
And in many ways, I say we do it the old-fashioned way. It's pounding the pavement.
Right, really.
It's going, it's knocking on doors. We often get calls from local businesses looking for people, so you know we're able to refer people to appropriate employment.
We're going to take a break. I want you to give out the website so people can go and learn more. What's on the website, by the way?
What's on the website? It will give you a description of all of our programs and upcoming events. It's warmshelter.org.
Okay.
We are at 56 Spruce Street, area code 401-596-9276.
If you need the utilize the services or maybe just want to ask questions, Russ Partridge is the executive director for the Warm Homeless Shelter. We'll take a break and come back. I'm Sean Murphy. This is For the Record. Stay with us. Welcome back to For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. My guest today is Russ Partridge, Executive Director for the WARM Homeless Shelter. And again, WARM is an acronym for, it's really an acronym that isn't used anymore, right? As far as the full wording.
It's really not. It's in our incorporated
Right.
documents, but it's really the WARM Center.
Right.
You know, to kind of begin this change that we are going through, we've really taken out the word homeless, and we really are a center since we're a comprehensive
That's a good point, yeah.
social service agency.
Right, it's a very all-encompassing, and that's what a lot are becoming now. And it's almost necessary to get people back on their feet to not just be a shelter, because you're really only, it's really, you know, to get them out of the cold for the night or the week or the month. But when you provide these services, that gets them back on their feet for the rest of their life.
That's exactly right. And that's really what we do. Part of our mission is to help people to move on to healthy living. And you know, to simply have night-to-night shelter is not something that we want to do. It is necessary in some parts, but we do it a little bit different.
And you service pretty much all of Rhode Island and come into southeastern Connecticut as well, right?
We do.
Okay.
We do.
The shelter is of no cost to the individual who utilizes it, but it has to be funded somehow, and one of the ways is fundraisers.
Yes.
So let's talk about some that are coming up.
We actually have 2 major fundraisers coming up. The first is in October, October 14th. It is what we're calling Sun, Sand, and Song. It is a group of local musicians, myself included, and my musical partner.
What do you play?
I play guitar and sing, and you know, Chris, our friend, calls me the Jimmy Buffett of
Oh,
Westerly.
Okay. I saw Jimmy Buffett. I'll see if you compare to him when I.
But that's going to be on a Sunday, and it's at the Andrea Hotel. And it's a full day of local musicians coming out, giving of their time and services. The tickets are going to be $10, and it's open all day.
Are you actually out on the beach behind it, or are you inside the
Well,
hotel?
it's all going to depend on weather dependent.
Right.
The other event that we have, we will be on the beach and in the water.
Wow.
That is our annual Penguin
Oh,
Plunge.
that's a biggie. Yeah.
It's a biggie.
Yeah.
You got to come down, and my colleague would be very disappointed if I didn't ask you to join us.
Jump in the water?
And jump in the water.
Well, can't I just broadcast?
Well, we've tried to get Chris
Yeah.
to jump in too,
Okay,
but
yeah.
you know, but broadcast, but certainly to come down and take a look.
Yeah.
It's a great event. It really has turned into a fabulous community event. And I now, for my 4th year, will be going in the water.
And what's the date of that?
I'm committed. I'm sorry. That's January 1st.
Wow, so
12
that is-
o'clock at the Andrea Hotel. It's a great event.
What if it's snowing that day? And,
We'll go anyway.
Yeah.
I've been very lucky the last 2 years.
Been mild days
It has
for you?
been mild
Wow.
days, but I know it's coming.
So those are a couple of fundraising events. And by the way, those events will be on the website for people
Yes.
to go and learn.
And register.
Register and be a part of it. But there other ways that you would generate revenue for the shelter?
We
Just
always
private
accept
donation?
we always accept private donations, corporate donations. We are in the midst of a capital campaign to renovate the shelter. We have a huge project that we've undertaken. We have begun to build a new facility which will house our soup kitchen and administrative offices, and the second floor will be 6 apartments for permanent housing for the disabled.
Wow.
You know, WARM's vision is to really close the door to homelessness. And the way that we do that, and all of us in Rhode Island and throughout the country are really looking at affordable permanent housing for folks who are in need. That's the way to end homelessness, and that's the direction that we're moving in.
Do you have a relationship with other shelters in the area for purposes of maybe if you aren't able to house them now, so there's sort of a symbiotic relationship?
We do. We get calls all the time from Covenant House here in New London and the Welcome House in Peacedale, Rhode Island. But we're open to anyone, provided that they meet the criteria for the shelter.
Right.
And if I could, part of that criteria, we are a clean and sober environment.
Okay.
We do random drug screens with folks prior to coming in. We do a criminal background check and so forth to make sure.
But even if somebody doesn't qualify in that area, you would be able to refer them somewhere
We
that
can
would be
refer
more
them.
appropriate
Yep.
for them.
We do. The last thing that I want to do is leave somebody out.
Right.
But if they're not appropriate for us, we certainly will make the referral to a shelter that we know will take them.
Now we talked about, you know, you always accept private donations and also corporate donations. How is it in the business area as far as financial support, especially since we were talking earlier about the economic times that we're in? Are companies still willing to give?
They are.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes they're still willing to give. The donation may be a little bit less.
Right.
But we're seeing the donations on a regular basis. We have a very supportive community in Westerly, and so we're seeing the donations. It may be a little bit less, but they're still coming.
And how about just the private financial offers from individuals? I've always found that even in these economic times, people are still willing to reach into their pocket and give.
It's amazing to me, and I say this and have said this for 4 years, it's amazing to me what happens in Westerly, and the folks who come in and volunteer or contribute financially to our agency. It's really heartwarming.
So since you brought it up, aside from financial support, I would imagine that you're always looking for volunteers.
We are.
And what kind of skill sets would they need to be able to help out?
We're looking for anyone, we have people who prepare meals and then bring them in and serve them. We have had people come in who do financial literacy with our families, our homeless families and individuals. People who have come in and ran yoga classes and arts classes. And so it's really the gamut of
whatever you're willing
to give, we'll find a place for you at WARM.
That's great. You know?
It really is. It's a great organization, but to see people, and some of them themselves are having difficulty, come in and be willing to give of their time and talent.
And like you said, even better when someone who is going through your services and come back
Yep.
and been able to help and be a mentor and talk about their own experiences as sort of a motivation for people that are in there now. That's great too.
It really is. I have a story that I tell often about an individual who came through and had some difficulty prior to coming in, but now comes back all the time and is a mentor to many of the people who come through. This individual is a volunteer outside of the agency for literacy volunteers in Westerly, and to see someone's life change because they've taken use of the resources that we have is really quite amazing.
Yeah, and heartwarming too.
And heartwarming.
So talk to me about the day-to-day duties of the executive director.
Oh man, these days,
Very.
it's quite varied. As I was saying to my former boss and colleague, Gene Barry, as I was leaving the office, I said it's the switching of gears. I went from a very, not high pressure, but an intense meeting from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock this morning to then discussing with the contractors in the new building, where all of the light fixtures and cable lines and telephone lines are going to go,
Wow.
and then of course coming here. So my day changes and my activities change quite a bit.
And when you're in nonprofit and maybe not necessarily have a large staff, you are running the gamut as far as the hats you wear. And
Yeah.
obviously you're also coming on TV.
Yeah.
And like you said, you're in a meeting talking to contractors. I would imagine there might be times where you might be in the kitchen.
Absolutely.
You're in there too.
Absolutely.
So doing a lot of different things.
I'm very, very lucky to have a tremendous staff of people. And we all wear a variety of hats, from cleaning the bathroom to, to really providing intensive case management services. One of my events coordinators, she not only oversees all of the events, but she runs the volunteers, and she runs one of our programs called Attire for Hire. So we all wear a variety of hats. But my staff, I can't say enough about the support that they give to me and the individuals who come in for service.
It sounds like you're very passionate about what you do, and also you get there's a very feeling of accomplishment when, a job, a day is completed and it's a job well done.
Yeah. I say often, I have the best job in the world. I see people who come in the door of WARM struggling and walk out on their own 2 feet. And that's tremendous.
Before we wrap up the show, I wanted to touch with you one more time for those watching or maybe know somebody. How do they get over that pride issue? Because that's one of the toughest things to do. They need your services, but what do they do? What's the first thing?
I think that one thing that you should call or come in. I think that you'll be very surprised with the open arms that you get and the hand that you get. I know the phrase is probably overused, but it's a hand up, not a hand out. We have the resources that can help people through difficult times. We have the resources that can help you to stabilize your life and your family's life. And so I can't say enough about, I think people would be very surprised about the welcoming that happens when they first come in.
So let's give them the information and the website, the phone number, everything they'll need.
It's the WARM Center. We're at 56 Spruce Street in Westerly, Rhode Island. WARMcenter.org, and the phone number is 401-596-9276.
Russ Partridge, the Executive Director for the WARM Center in Westerly, but servicing all of Rhode Island and southeastern Connecticut. As always, pleasure having you on the show.
Sean, thank you so much for having me.
And keep me posted on the events coming up, because I'd like to join you for
I
them,
will.
all right?
If you'll come in the water.
Wow, that's asking a lot. He's put me on the spot here. I'm Sean Murphy. This is For the Record. We will see you next time. Take care.